You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 85. Today, we're talking all about how to create your winning team. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right, hello everyone, James Wedmore here.
And I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, where we talk about everything mindset. What else do we talk about? Business.
Spirituality. Woo-woo.
All that crazy woo-woo stuff when it comes to being an entrepreneur out there playing the game.
And to be a winning entrepreneur, you need sometimes,
most of the time,
all the time,
a winning team. And we are so friggin' excited. I have been waiting for this moment for a year.
I wish you could see him right now. He is glowing.
I have been waiting for this moment my entire life. This is the time. This is the moment that I get to bring my wife, Chelsea Wedmore, onto the podcast. Chelsea, how you doing?
Woo! Well, I'm flattered and embarrassed.
What? Why are you embarrassed?
It was such a glowing review, and I feel like you're overselling me a little bit, but I'm happy to be here and honored to be asked to record.
Chelsea is the woman behind the man that really makes this business run. And we have a very special topic to talk about. It would not be fair of me to talk about this without having her here. And it becomes something that we've both become so passionate about. It is something that fulfills both of us and lights us up at a level that we've just never both experienced before. And I kind of look at the evolution of my life. Like, I started a business 9 years ago because James wanted to make some money. And that's what motivated me. That might be what motivates our listeners or some people. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That evolved into a motivation of being fulfilled by impacting our customers and making a difference in our students and customers' lives. Now it's reached a whole nother level, which is the direct impact we have on the team that we have created here in Wedmore headquarters, our little team, and what we've done to improve their lives. And you just see firsthand day in and day out. And so I say to all my students, we've said this on the podcast before, we say it inside Business by Design, that one of the quickest ways to fail at this is to try and do it all alone. Mm-hmm. And that's just a really tough uphill battle. And you know what they say, if you want to go fast, do it yourself. But if you want to go far, bring others with you. And boy, the smartest decision I made long ago was to bring my loving, extraordinary wife with me. And we really are going far because of her and the transformation that my business has taken, now our business, since she has come on board. I can't even begin to describe to you, but we're going to try and give you an essence of that here today. I don't know. You've been hanging out with us for a long time, Phoebe. Like, do you see any type of, there's what we call BC, which is before Chelsea.
Oh.
Right? And then now, the Chelsea we have now. Do you see a difference?
No. I'm just kidding. Just because she's sitting here, I could say that. I can make fun of her. But James, you took a lot of the words out of my mouth, because what I wanted to say is I came in before Chelsea and getting to know her. And so obviously it was me, James, and Melissa, and then Clint. And we were growing this business. And then all of a sudden Chelsea came in, and it was like she shook everything up in such a good way. And kind of, I love when people say, actually, one of my girlfriends says, it's like they dumped out your purse and you're like, where are my keys? And that is like exactly how I felt. It was like the whole business is upside down in such a great way that now we can actually put all the pieces back together and we can figure out what's important and what's not and where we're being efficient. And I think that's one of the things that you do so well, and I can so appreciate about you, is that you're all about efficiency. And so it's like, okay, this process doesn't work, hand it to Chelsea. She'll figure it out. And just even yesterday, I sent her an email. I was like, oh, this isn't working. Something totally unrelated to anything that I'm working on, obviously. And she's just coming down here to Laguna now. She's like, oh, yeah, we fixed that. like, well, that was fast. Oh my God.
And one of the things I want to point out before we let Chelsea speak more, because we're hogging the mic right now, is that she has, she won't be the braggadocious one on the call. She'll be very modest, but she has no prior experience doing this. She never set out to, she'll be the first one to tell you, she never set out to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. She has no prior experience running a business. And so for me to just throw her in the deep end, right into the fire and say, you got this figured out. As she really has. She's just done extraordinarily well. So, Chelsea, I want to ask you, I think the first question I want to throw at you is, I want people to kind of get a dose, as hard as this is going to be, but to have our listeners get a little bit of a picture of what it's like at Wedmore headquarters. What can you share to give people the experience of what it's like a day in the office, a day with the team, and the experience that we have together?
Okay, I will happily answer that. But just to touch on the fact that I didn't have any prior business experience, when I graduated college, I went into the magazine industry and worked for somebody else and was promoted ultimately as an editor. And then I switched careers in my early 30s and went back to graduate school to become a teacher. And that's where I was when I met James. I was teaching high school English. And so the one thing, however, that I love to do is structure and organization. Mm-hmm. And my previous careers enabled me to enhance that capacity for structure and organization. So coming into the business, it was really exciting for me because I saw the need for more structure and organization, especially with James, who is just the most playful, free person I've ever met. He, as an entrepreneur, doesn't really want to be confined to any rote or iterative process. He wants the freedom to do what he wants when he wants. And I come in and I muck it all up for him.
Thank God. Someone's got to tie him down.
And I thrive on consistency and efficiency, like you said, Phoebe, and formatting and grammar. So a day in the life of Team Wedmore. Well, the first thing I did when I came in was to redecorate the office because I felt like we needed a creative space that fostered ideas and motivated people. And it's funny because people who walk by our office are often drawn in because of the environment. So it's a lot of bright lights and space and natural sunlight. So a day in the life of Team Wedmore, I think mostly it's just a really dynamic experience for everyone. It is constantly changing. And one of the things I recognize with the team especially is that though they want structure, they want freedom within that structure. They know their responsibilities, they know what we expect of them, and they know what to anticipate. But within those parameters, they're given tons of freedom to execute the way that works best for them. As a teacher, I recognized that each of my students had a very specific way of learning. And to differentiate my training was important because some were kinesthetic learners and needed to move while they learned. Others were audio and visual. And it's just like that with our team. And so every day is different. And we spend a lot of time brainstorming. I think that's what everybody enjoys the most, is sitting around the communal table we have in the middle of the office and throwing out ideas and really feeling like their voice and opinions are valued. And they are. They absolutely are. Some of the best ideas have come from someone who doesn't do that responsibility on a daily basis, but they have that perspective to see a different way of doing something or what we're not doing that we could be doing.
Yeah, I always tell the team that my first favorite words that you can start a sentence with is, James, I have an idea, because those are my favorite conversations. So we've done stuff where we force them lovingly to do like round robin idea roundtables where like you go around the table and someone has to share an idea. Like, what is something cool we could do? What's a new marketing strategy? What's a new social media thing? What's, and so many unbelievable ideas have come from that discussion. And I think it's very exciting for the team to see their ideas take life. And my job, my role, is to make sure that that idea actually, if executed upon, does something for the business. So we're not just doing it to be busy. And then Chelsea's job is to make sure that it's done the right way. And when we just do that, everything else is like, we just get out of the way and let them have fun.
Well, and I think that's a huge part of why your team works. So in my experience, when I used to work in RMI, your video marketing membership program, we were like renovating and just completely revamping the entire program. And I flew down here and we all sat around and we did that circle thing. And that makes me really nervous. I don't like to share ideas out loud. I like to think and write things out and then share. But it was just interesting to see how all these ideas really did come to life. And if you remember all the module titles, we kind of assigned that to Stephen and Dina, and they came up with it, and we were all like, whoa, that's perfect. And I think we were just too far in it. I've been looking at RMI for 2.5 years. I'm like, I just can't, I don't know what it should be. But having them not only come to the table with great ideas, but get so excited when all of us were like, yes, this works. And I think that level of, community and that level of trust and autonomy that they have, I feel like is really valuable and is something that just in speaking to them individually, whenever I've had personal conversations with them, that is something that always rings true. And I see that. And that's something as I look to build my team that I will definitely steal from you guys. Not steal, borrow.
You can have it.
So I want to go a little bit deeper and see if we can give even more of a picture of what it's like. Can you speak a little bit? I think when I said it's such a rewarding, fulfilling experience, is because the team really shares a lot of what their experience has been. What would you say are some of the things that the team says about their experience of working here?
So I think the predominant response I get from the team and why they're happy here is that you, and by proxy me, we encourage them to find their strengths and then move in that direction. So if they don't like something, we check in with them often. We do a lot of informal information gathering from our employees. We ask them what they're enjoying, what they're not enjoying, what they want to do more of. And that gives them the power to determine where they're going inside the business and focus on what they are best at and then what they want to learn more about. And that growth is really, I think, encouraging and motivating for them.
Now, we've talked about this in one of our favorite episodes, episode 21, where we start talking about the Myers-Briggs conversation. But we use that. We use that for every hire, the position that we're looking at, and then we make sure that we know their personality type as we get to know them. Because I kind of feel like what we do, part of what we do is we play matchmaker, right? We're looking to, wow, you fit our culture. We love your attitude. You're the type of person we'd want to hang out with and be friends with. Let's find out where your skills lie. Let's find out where your natural superpowers are. What are you really good at? What if left to your own devices, you would just do naturally and just thrive at, really succeed at? In fact, one of the things that we ask them in either the interview process or briefly after that is, if this were the best job ever, and you just had the greatest day at the best job ever, how would you describe your day? What type of things did you do in this best day ever at the best job ever? Just to kind of see, what is a perfect day? And we try and match them to that. And I think where I see people getting things wrong is people say they're trying to jam the square peg into the round hole, right? They're trying to say, this is the position I need filled, and you need to fill it, and you need to figure out how to be this person for me. And, we live by this quote of, you don't blame a flower when it doesn't bloom. You blame the environment in which it grows. And Chelsea and I take full 100% responsibility for that environment each and every day. And if someone isn't living up to their potential, if someone makes a mistake, if someone doesn't do what we expect of them, we look to the environment, we look to the process, we look to our communication, and we ultimately look to ourselves first. And I think they know that. And I don't know, I think that's a really important piece.
Yeah, and I have to say, so in a slightly different example, but I think, Chelsea, you might resonate with this. When I was building my mastermind, like after talking to these people, it really is like fitting a group of people together. So you're assessing everything from like their goals, their dreams, their kids, their, lifestyles, their businesses, everything. So many different pieces to create this cohesive unit. And in there, just after talking to people, I became this like, I had like turned on mama bear mode. I was like, okay, now it's not about me. It's about how do I create this amazing environment for these people? And so why I said I think that would resonate with you is because you do very much seem to be the mother of the group. You lead them, but you also are very overprotective of your team, which is something, I really appreciate. And I can see that they want to do right by you, but it's almost, it's like you guys are looking, and this is a total acknowledgement, but you guys are always looking for the best in the people, as opposed to a lot of people that I have worked with or that, I know in the industry are always constantly complaining about the people that they work with. And they're always like looking for them to drop the ball. And when they do, it's like, okay, well, done. Oh,
or see, I told you.
Exactly. Like, oh, it never works. I hate this. And, all contractors are out of integrity. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not actually true. But just knowing what your goal is, having that commitment to building that cohesive unit is something that I find so important, whether it's building, and especially in building a team, because really these are the front lines for you guys to protect you, James. And it's really nice to see, and to, you were saying the other day that you have 8 employees in the office, and that is just, from where you guys started is really, really impressive.
And I think we've hit all home runs. Like, totally. I don't want to jinx it, but we're just like, we are, I think, more proud of this accomplishment than I think anything in both of our lives. I would love to put it to Chelsea and say, what do you think has really contributed to that? Like, what do you think have been, I know it's a big question, but what are the first things that come to your mind that have made it work for us, when I know so many people struggle with this, hence why we're having this episode?
I just wanted to touch on what Phoebe was saying, because there's a lot of luck in this. I do attribute this not to so much my know-how, but really to just finding some amazing people kind of by luck, and then fostering that relationship. And this is my family, the family I've picked or curated, really. Sometimes I refer to them as my army, because they do go into battle for me during launches or during certain projects. They're right there on the front lines. For that matter, Rose, our customer support manager, is by far the first line of attack. So what we've done right is, I'm guessing at this, but I think our team really knows we care about them. It's due to some extent, due to the informal information gathering and that we do. But I make sure to tell them when they're doing a wonderful job. And I do that frequently. And that's not insincere on my part. They're just spectacular people, but I want to make sure that I'm communicating that to them on a regular basis. I think developing a company culture and having them involved in that process of developing the company culture was really important, because they have a sense of ownership in this business and our success.
Well, just going back to what you're saying about caring, which I do think is such a huge part, I think there's been plenty of examples where we've demonstrated that they're our priority over our customers. Like, when we'll have a customer, some rude a-hole that attacks Rose, like, these are human beings, and just saying, like, calling her names or something, and when she's just doing her job, and that person is dead to us. Like, they go on an immediate blacklist, and we'll go to bat for our team. And I think our team sees that like, you don't get to treat our team this way. And I think that's one example of, like, they get to see us stick up for them. And there's so many examples of us, like, truly caring for them.
Let me just say, Rose is professional and nurturing and kind and compassionate. And that comes across in her communication with our customers. So it especially angers me when someone reacts to her in an aggressive way.
Just Chelsea saying that, like, I mean, there's a clear, like, commitment and level of concern and care for and love for our team. And I mean, that's what we want. Maybe other people don't want that, but I don't know. I think we chose that. Well, I know one of the first things, Chelsea, that you mentioned was how you came into the office and you're like, all right, the office needs a makeover. Fascinating place to start. But I think another great conversation to bring up is the conversation of hiring local versus virtual. And you were very adamant about local. In fact, I would want to work with someone virtual and you're like, I want them in the office. And so I would love, people ask all the time, local or not to be local. And I would love to know your take on that and why.
I think the reason I was such a huge proponent of hiring local was the way that when Melissa and Phoebe came down for one of our launches, and the excitement and the enthusiasm generated with us all together prompted me to want more of that. And because they're settled, we couldn't ask them to come to Laguna, even though we tried with Phoebe.
We did try.
We really lobbied for her to move here.
And every time I'm down here, just a few minutes ago, I'm like, God, the sunset. You're like, isn't it beautiful? It's like this every day.
Like, you just look out the office and there's a sunset for you. So our first hire was Jilly, and she was also a native of Laguna, which was a selling point for us because Laguna has its own culture and lifestyle. And when you grow up here, you know that person just a little bit better than you might know someone else coming from even a neighboring town. And so Jilly was my first foray into having someone in the office and around a lot. And as a huge introvert, I wasn't really prepared to be in the office with someone all the time. But she's amazing, and I love her, and we're friends in addition to being coworkers. And she showed me what was possible with how much we can get done in a day when we're not waiting on that communication, that delay in between email responses, or even Slack isn't as immediate as just answering someone across the room. And the great thing is that there's a tempo that everyone joins in on in the office. We all sort of start to align our rhythms, and we're able to sort of ebb and flow with communication. We're able to jump on a project that needs all of our eyes all at once and immediately. And then we're also able to respect each other's time when they're clearly working on something that they don't want to be distracted on. We're mindful of that. But I just feel like it's the most productive and efficient way.
I just can't stress enough how much communication is a vital piece of all of this. And we struggled with that so much, where you can't get a hold of someone, emails get lost, someone's working on another project, another thing.
Time difference.
There's the time differences, absolutely. And we're brainstorming. I mean, the amount of effort that went into I'm going to crack this code. I'm going to put the right software and systems and rules and processes in place so that communication improves. And then you just have someone working in the office. You don't need a fraction of the amount of duct tape solutions and rules and processes that you do when you're connecting with people that are all over the globe and you're building a team virtually.
Well, and I think it's also important that everybody knows their role, right? So we're not saying by building a team that negates any need for having a virtual team that would be in the Philippines or something like that. It's just the roles that you guys are hiring, from what I have seen and what I understand, are just a higher level. People like Jilly, who set the bar really high for everybody else. And she kind of came in and I think caught everyone off guard and was like, oh, she can do that too? And she wants to do that too? That's really cool. And I think the best part, just in my personal conversations with Jilly, she is just so excited to continue on with the company. That is huge. That's really, really important.
I like to say we have lifers for employees, and I feel really excited about that. And to piggyback on what you're saying, it's not that there's not a need for a virtual team or processes or structure. It just becomes a lot more effortless when you have the team in-house, because the processes reveal themselves a lot more readily, and then you can refine them and hone them in the moment. You can make these snap judgments, or you have this perspective that's so immediate. The immediacy of being able to see where something's going wrong and fix it in that moment.
Well, there's nothing more frustrating than when you have an idea and you start to build something and you're like, oh, this is going to be so great. And then 3 days later, you show it to someone, they're like, no, that's not going to work. And you're like, oh, I wish that I had, we're all pointing at James here. No, just, I wish I had, if you're in the office, it's a short walk into the office or just, hey, what do you guys think of this? As opposed to well, I'm going to spend a lot of time on this and then it's not going to work out.
Yeah, we're in the middle of doing some major projects, and the quality check is Steven's so great about it, and I just have to give him props for constantly making sure that what he's doing is aligned with what I want. And he understands that the more often he checks with me, the less work he actually has to do. But by the same token, he's had a lot of practice, so he really doesn't need my guidance anymore. He's got it down to a science.
One thing you touched upon, and I know you know, Chelsea spoke at our live event a couple of weeks ago, and you definitely said this there, is how us as entrepreneurs crave the freedom, but that's not so much the case with our employees. Can you speak to that for a bit?
Yes. As someone who never wanted to be an entrepreneur, I recognized that while entrepreneurs want their freedom, employees and anyone who doesn't want to be an entrepreneur often thrive under structure and organization. So what structure looks like is they have a very definite idea of what's expected of them, of their responsibilities, what they're accountable for, when it needs to be executed on, and what the deadlines are, and they're able to plan their lives. I've noticed that James and I do live a little bit by the seat of our pants, and we like to go on trips every so often, you know, randomly. We have trips planned, but then we'll just take off for a couple of days. And we have gotten more mindful of that because our team wants to know when they're expected to be working and when they're not. And really, I don't even know if that's applicable because our team tends to like be online at midnight sometimes just because they want to. It's pretty incredible. And they'll work on the weekends when we definitely are not asking them to. But they know when they absolutely need to be working on something, and everything else is their choice. And I think having choice within that framework is really important to them, because if they don't have a framework, they feel insecure. They don't know whether what they're doing is useful or grounds for, you know, dismissal. So that's why we take the hiring process so seriously, because first of all, I never would want to fire any of my employees. I've actually had to fire people in the past, and it's a miserable process. But we do hire slow and fire fast, and I take that very seriously. We would never want to sacrifice or undermine the integrity of the group. The reason our team works so well is because everyone is on the same team. There's no one out there for himself.
So sorry to interrupt real quick. I just wanted to make a point because I feel like when I'm listening to you talk about this, I wanted to kind of come from the other side because I've been on the other side of this. So for people who know or don't know, actually, so when I started with James, when he hired me, 2.5 years ago, we had a conversation. He's like, I know that you're not an employee, you're an entrepreneur. And I was like, yeah, that's right. And he's like, but I see something in you that, you know, you can have kind of this autonomous project where you are still an entrepreneur, but you get to like run with this project. And that suited me so well. And I was so grateful for that because I then had the ability to, you know, I had some sort of framework, like I couldn't go nuts. However, I did have the freedom and flexibility to do and make the decisions that I felt were right for the project and for the business that I was running at the time. And so, you know, I just wanted to make that distinction because I think it is important that, you know, sometimes employees want structure, and it's always hard to hire entrepreneurs because you kind of know at some point they're going to leave, most likely, but knowing the difference and just structuring the projects within your business in a certain way to allow either employees or entrepreneurs to grow, I think is really important.
It's really strange as I hear you say employee, and I know I've said it multiple times. I don't look at our team as employees, and I use it out of ease or convenience because it does sort of cast a wide net. But really our team they're more than employees, which is why we are really deliberate and specific about how and who we hire.
Totally. And can we kind of get into it? Who was the first hire? Who'd you guys hire first? I know you spoke about Jilly. Was that?
And I think also, like, who do you recommend for other people?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a question I hear a lot is, well, what should my first hire be?
Especially, well, regardless if you have a virtual assistant or not, but if you're going to make either a local hire, like who would you recommend that you start with?
Well, let me get to that in a second, because that is a really big question. And that is the biggest question I think I get from other business owners. So after Jilly, we hired Rose, our customer support manager. And that was the only niche job position I've hired for. It required a specific set of skills and definitely a very specific personality type. And we won the lottery with Rose. And she has developed in a way that I am so proud to witness, because she went from, and I threw her into the frying pan, but she went from being a brand new hire customer support rep to running the customer support team in about a month and a half.
Wow.
We decided to move away from the people that had been running customer support. And she went in there and she got my vision for customer support, and she ran with it. And she has put in systems and processes that make her job easier, but also enhance the entire operational capacity for the rest of the business. And she's just incredible. She's a mom of a beautiful girl, Shiloh, and we just adore her whole family. And we're so lucky that she's a part of our team, and she's one of those lifers. And we're sending her to Sonoma this weekend, and I'm super excited because she hasn't had a vacation in several years.
Why don't you talk a little bit as to why we're sending her to Sonoma? Because I think that was a really big deal.
Because she's awesome. We decided to send Rose to Sonoma in large part because she hadn't been on a vacation in 4 or 5 years since 4 years since Shiloh was born, but also because she, at our team retreat, showed such tremendous insight into the workings of the business. She was kind of the driving force for a lot of the transformation that's happened since then. And she took that leadership role and ran with it. And I think that's so special, because for somebody who is such a nurturing human, leadership doesn't always come easily. And I think we've fostered that in her. Big thing that we've addressed multiple times over the past year and a half since she was hired was that she's empowered, that I fully place my trust in her to make the right decision in the best interest of our company. And I think that was a scary thing for her to take on. And then she's suddenly really embraced that role, and it's remarkable.
Well, just speaking to the team retreat itself was such an awesome experience. So we took the whole team up to Alisal Ranch, which is this compound vacation spot in Solvang, California. And they each got their own cabin, and we spent the day kind of working on exercises and working through things, sharing our vision for the company, what we want to do moving forward. And I think one of my favorite parts of that was when we asked every one of the members what their vision for the company was, what they want to see happen, and what they would like to have created. I'm sitting there going, man, why am I even coming up with ideas? I just listen to them and do what they say. And there were some so amazing things. People are like, well, James, you need a new website. That was a big one that came up. And then one of the things that came up out of it, and I'd love to have you speak to this a little bit, Chelsea, because it was just such a beautiful thing, was then Rose ended up creating a 2-day workshop for us internally to do a customer support makeover. And it really came from one simple intention, to say we want to make our entire customer support team, their lives and their jobs, as easy and streamlined as possible.
And since I have my own agenda with this podcast, I just want to make a quick side note on the team retreat that we invited their families as well, which I think is really important. If we're going to ask our team to dedicate a large portion of their life to making our business better, then we want their families to be involved and to understand what they're signing up for. And so when we throw team parties, team dinners, they're all involved. And actually now some of them work for us. So and I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend that, but it has worked out well for us. The customer support workshop was a huge success. We sat down as an entire team around the table. Rose came down. Rose is our only virtual employee in California. The entirety of the team really is in the office except for Rose, and she's up in Santa Cruz, so it's not terribly far away. But again, she came down, she brought her daughter and her mom, and we all sat in the office talking about just the biggest and grandest ideas and vision for customer support. And nothing was too big or too challenging. And we put it all down on paper, and then we categorized it and we prioritized it. And nothing was left off. In fact, everything that was maybe seemingly challenging was not challenging. James has this capacity to look at something and find a solution immediately. And then we set to work, and everyone's pitching in because everyone can benefit from this. It was amazing to see how much people, like Stephen, for instance, was enjoying the process as well. And we had Dina and Josh. And speaking of Dina and Josh, let me just touch on the rest of the team because they're also dear to my heart. So after Rose, we did a double hire. We decided we could not live without either of them. So we hired Stephen and Dina at the same time and hired them as personal assistants, and then decided they had such different strengths that we could use both of them for different things. And Stephen he's just a great soul, and he's come on and he's taken Facebook ads off of James's plate, which I will be forever grateful to him for, because that has alleviated so much of James's responsibilities. And Stephen is my biggest cheerleader as well. Like, if I say anything, he's clapping or he's so excited for me. Like,
that's why you like him so much.
I just adore Stephen. He is a team player like nobody else. He is there doing whatever needs to be done, regardless of whether that's something we've asked of him. He's just there for us, and he's a great support. And then there's Dina. And Dina she's been what Stephen is to the business. She's been that to me and to the business. But Dina she was initially my personal assistant, and she helped me throw an amazing wedding. She was there by my side to help me emotionally and then also plan the various parties surrounding the wedding. But so Dina likes to call herself Assistant Chelsea. Not assistant to the regional manager, but assistant regional manager. It's like I've cloned myself, but I don't just love her for that. She can see inside my brain and articulate it better than I can. And she anticipates my needs. She's just gold to me. And I've just spent the day with her at our house talking and working through a big project that we've got going on. And I value her so much as a person and as a team member. For my birthday, she gave me a gold trophy that says best couple with a picture of her and I. Her and me taped onto the trophy. And she's got a wicked sense of humor. And then after that, we brought Josh on, which is Jilly's husband. And Josh was just so gung-ho. He ran with the smallest tasks, and then he developed his own role. We didn't even have to. He just made himself invaluable immediately. And now he runs all the live events and is really moving into more of a production manager role, not just with the live events, but anything that's requires production. And then we've had our two most recent hires, Jasmine and Megan. Megan's coming on to the customer support department, and Jasmine is running most of our social media now. She has a huge following, and she's very creative, and they both just bring an entire new element, but that completely jives with the rest of the team's dynamic.
So I can only imagine that people listening to this will start to get overwhelmed, right? That there's oh my gosh, so many people, and do I need this whole team? And I think it's really important to know that, no, this is something you grow into. And all this allows for us is to work less on the work and just raise the caliber and quality of the things that we want to do and do more of it. We get to have more launches, more offers, more projects, more products, more ways that we can serve our customers, more things that we get to work on. We can do this podcast and do a launch because we have the team. And, when you're starting, you just don't. You just got to start with less. But where I want to go with this is almost circle back to the what's your first hire and ask it in a different way. Because I remember when you spoke, Chelsea, at the live event, people had this question. It really got me to see that the way you and I, especially you, approach this team building conversation is very different than the average person. I think people are really trying to fill a role. They're really trying to say, how do I create a job post for social media manager or create a job post for website conversion specialist? And we never did that. So what advice do you have for someone who's like, okay, I know I need to get someone in. How do I find them? How do I put the post up? What am I looking for? And how do I know that I've found them?
Yeah, so sorry. I just want to talk about the team all day and each of them individually. But I think that where we went right with this was posting for a personal assistant, casting the net as wide as possible. And we hired for attitude. We didn't hire for experience or skill set. And man, did that pay off with Jilly. The attitude and the eagerness was there, and then the rest of it was just training. And
isn't there the saying that you hire for attitude, train for skill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I don't even know if I understood that when we hired Jilly. And so we put a post out that was pretty simplistic, but it ended with, and we're awesome. And I recall Jilly kind of responding to that when she came in. She was like, that was a clincher for me. And we hired her 2 days later, and it was over the 4th of July weekend, or we would have hired her on the spot. But and so, I mean, what I would say to somebody is, if you don't want to hire for a personal assistant, but hiring a personal assistant means that you can literally have them take whatever is on your desk off your desk. They can do whatever odd jobs you need them to, and then you can find out where their strengths and skill sets lie and direct them there.
And their passions, right?
Absolutely.
Like, what are they really passionate about? And so I remember in some of the hiring processes that I've been a part of, it was like, what do you love to do? What do you hate to do? Mm-hmm. And what are you good at? And it was funny to see some of the overlaps I'm not going to push anything your way you don't love doing, or you don't want to learn to love to do.
Right.
So I think there's a big element of that, especially with, because you have hired for a personal assistant, seeing kind of where they're going to thrive, because that's going to make them feel better and they're going to stay longer and, all around benefits.
Absolutely. Not stuffing a square peg in a round hole. That did not roll off the tongue. And let me also give credit to Jilly, because she's been a huge part. She's been by my side building this team the whole time. So she was my first. So one of the things that we do that Jilly and I actually developed was a monkey survey that we link to in our job posts. And it gets us to understand the prospect before they even come into the office for the interview. And we ask questions that are applicable to our business, like what are your values, or rate these values in order of priority for you, and what would you do in this scenario, what you did and didn't like about your last job. But we end it with a couple of personal questions, like what does integrity mean to you, which is our core value. And let me say, Megan, the most recent hire, has integrity tattooed on her arm. So I asked Megan the question again in the interview, and she was like, funny enough, I've got integrity. And she's so polished and like perfect, to have her roll up her sleeve and show me that integrity was tattooed on her arm just sealed the deal for me. And we ask, like, what, I love this question because it brings out the fun in people, the playful side. If you could have lunch with any person from history or celebrity or artist, who would you have lunch with? And we get some really interesting responses.
What would you say? Say James, I could be like,
oh, from history, I would have wanted to meet Catherine the Great, the Russian Empress. Tsarina.
I think mine might be Cleopatra.
Ooh.
I feel like she would be really fun.
She's feisty.
Feisty, I like it. James?
Can I have my podcast back?
This is the Mind Your Business podcast featuring Chelsea Wedmore and Phoebe Mroczek.
I love what?
You guys suck.
Get out of here. And so that just really, I mean, it just gives us a little bit of insight into the personality, which is important. People need to be playful and professional in this environment. So to get back to the question about who I would hire first, I would hire a personal assistant. I would figure out what they can do for me and then develop their position based on that, what they enjoy doing. Jilly was an accounting major. She doesn't do accounting at all. And she reminds me of that every once in a while when I'm pulling out my hair trying to deal with finances, because that's her skill set, but she doesn't like to do it. And she doesn't do that now, and she chose not to do that as a career. So,
well, and if there had been a job posting for a project manager, she would have self-selected out and been like, oh, I don't have those capabilities and I can't do that. So then, I'm an accountant, or I work in real estate, whatever she was doing. And it's like, that could have just been a total sliding door moment.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. That's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
Not closing the door on some great prospect because they don't have experience as a project manager.
Yeah, and now you've developed a lifer out of her, which is awesome. I think it's really helpful, and it's actually really nice to hear directly from Chelsea, because we don't actually really we never sit down and actually talk about this stuff. One of the biggest complaints I hear from entrepreneurs is that they can't find the right team. They're not hiring the right people. Mishap after mishap. And so it's just really nice to have you actually break it down and to show that there's a different way of going about hiring contractor, an employee, a friend, whatever that looks like, but knowing that it can come from a totally different place and you can spin it in a way that turns into your family. I think that's really nice.
The amount of horror stories and just nightmares I've heard, the frustrations, the breakdowns, the troubles from people in our industry, building a team, hiring other people, just nightmares. And I really hope, if anything, we're showing that it's possible. There is a way to do this where it's light and it's fun and it's easy. It doesn't kill you in the process. So maybe your first hire is you need to hire a Chelsea, but that's another episode. So again, thank you so much, Mrs. Wedmore, for joining us on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
And I think we've got a couple more episodes that we're going to want to bring Chelsea back on for, a couple other topics that, some of the questions I didn't even get to, like going deeper into our hiring process, how to create company culture. I just think these are such important topics as we build a team. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, grow a team. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm James Wedmore.
I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And we'll see you on the next episode. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.